The doctrine of physicalism posits that all correct information in the universe is strictly physical information. Under this framework, a human being is a purely biological mechanism. Our thoughts, behaviors, and sensations are the direct outputs of chemistry and physics operating within the nervous system. This molecular model of a DNA double helix represents the scale at which modern scientific inquiry maps our biology. The objective is to compile a complete structural accounting of the organism, down to the atomic level. According to the physicalist premise, possessing the complete structural and functional history of these physical states equates to possessing all possible knowledge about that organism. If the physicalist worldview is true, resolving the complete neurophysiological blueprint of a human leaves zero informational mysteries. We can test this by tracking the exact physiological process of human visual perception, following the flow of data from an external object into the brain. Photons reflect off a surface, enter the retina, and trigger a sequence of electrical impulses across neural nodes in the visual cortex. We can objectively quantify these firings, measuring the exact electromagnetic frequencies and processing speed. Look at this photograph of the Mona Lisa in its museum setting. This is the real-world physical catalyst, triggering that exact sequence of neurological data. Yet the numerical data detailing the visual cortex in action fails to describe the internal, personal experience of observing the painting. The physical map tracks the mechanics of sight perfectly, but it omits the subjective experience of seeing. Philosophers identify this missing subjective character of experience using the term qualia. It refers to the hurtfulness of a pain, or the specific sensation of tasting a lemon. If the subjective experience of an image is absent from a complete physical map of the brain, then qualia exist outside the physicalist framework. Consider a thought experiment involving Mary, a brilliant neurophysiologist who has acquired absolutely all physical information about human color vision. Mary operates under a strict environmental constraint. She investigates the world entirely from within a black and white room. She knows the precise wavelengths of light that stimulate the retina when a human looks at the sky. She can map the exact central nervous system pathways that result in the vocal cords vibrating to utter the word blue. She acquired this complete set of physical data exclusively through black and white monitors. Does Mary learn something new about the world when she is released from the room and sees a colored object for the first time? Logically, she must. She learns what it is like to see color, an experience she previously lacked entirely. Mary possessed all physical facts, yet still acquired new phenomenal knowledge upon her release. Therefore, physicalism is demonstrably incomplete. We can invert this limitation by examining a hypothetical subject named Fred. Fred possesses the ability to physically separate wavelengths in the red spectrum, allowing him to see colors invisible to normal humans. The physiological basis of this trait is isolated to a differential cone response in his optic nerve. As external observers, we can map Fred's optic nerve with perfect accuracy. Despite this, we remain entirely ignorant of what his new color actually looks like. This dynamic echoes a literary scenario constructed by the author H.G. Wells. In his story, The Country of the Blind, a sighted man finds himself in a community that has been entirely blind for generations.
The community ridicules him, unable to conceive of an extra sense. The blind community's refusal to admit the reality of sight mirrors the physicalist's refusal to admit the reality of Fred's subjective color experience. Knowledge of an experience from the inside is a discrete factual property. Objective physical science is structurally incapable of capturing it. The standard scientific methodology of reductionism attempts to solve complex phenomena by breaking them down into objective, fundamental parts. Look at this photograph of a lightning strike. Science successfully reduced this phenomenon by defining it as a localized atmospheric electrical discharge. To achieve this, researchers abandoned the specific human visual viewpoint of the flash. They discarded how the lightning appeared to the eye, focusing instead on its objective properties. Cognitive science assumes that consciousness can be successfully reduced using this exact same trajectory toward increasing objectivity. We can test this assumption against a completely non-human phenomenological entity, the Microchiroptera bat. A neurophysiologist can map the exact physical mechanics of the bat's high-frequency sonar and brain processing. However,
A human cannot physically or imaginatively occupy the bat's alien point of view to know what that sonar actually feels like. Consciousness is the subjective viewpoint. Attempting to reduce it by moving toward greater objectivity requires abandoning the exact phenomenon we are trying to explain. This leads to epiphenomenalism, the theory that conscious states are caused by physical brain events but possess zero causal power over the physical world. The primary objection to this theory relies on Darwinian logic. If qualia evolved over time, natural selection dictates they must be conducive to physical survival and therefore must have causal effects. Observe the polar bear in this Arctic environment. Its biology provides a direct counterexample to the assumption that all evolved traits offer a survival advantage. The bear evolved a thick, warm coat. This specific trait is highly conducive to survival in the freezing climate. However, a thick coat is inherently a heavy coat. The heavy weight slows the animal down, acting as a detrimental but unavoidable physical concomitant of the necessary warmth. Qualia operate by the same logic. They are the harmless, causally impotent byproducts of highly advantageous neural processes. They exist in the mind, while doing absolutely nothing in the physical realm. The physicalist model relies on the assumption that humanity possesses the inherent cognitive potential to comprehend our complete place in the objective universe. Yet human cognitive faculties are the strict result of evolutionary chance. They are designed exclusively to preserve and increase survival value. Understanding how epiphenomenal qualia map onto physical matter provides zero survival advantage to our species. At no stage of human evolution did natural selection favor those who could solve the mind-body problem. Watch this organic tissue lose its pigmentation. It is a visual representation of the inevitable consequence of our evolutionary biology. Vast portions of reality fall permanently outside our parameters. This includes the true nature of our own subjective experience. The explanation gap is not a temporary failure of modern neuroscience. It is a permanent structural limitation of an objective species unequipped to map its own inner light.